Welcome, everyone, to the 5th Annual Landus Stockholders Meeting. I'm Matt Karstens, your President and CEO, and I'm honored to be a part of this Landus journey and serving in this role for all of you at your cooperative. You know, albeit that this isn't the way we planned this annual meeting to be, I would have much rather over the last several days be out at 5 different locations near all of you, shaking hands, talking about the business as a whole. But at Landus, we'll talk about something today called the Landus Way. And there's no excuses. We must find ways to get our information to you and share with you the journey we're on. You deserve that as owners of this cooperative. So I'm excited, amongst others, to be a part of this discussion, although virtually, still in a way that meets the expectation of you and what you need. So the agenda we're going to follow today will be very centered around some of the same things we would have brought to you before, but more in the way of a condensed version to get this all within the hour to ensure your time is well spent. It's a little tougher to do virtually as well and sit in front of a computer or phone watching us. So what we'll do is I'll give some opening comments here. I'll turn it over in a few seconds to our board chairman. Then we'll let our CFO talk a little bit about the financials and where we're going. And then moving on to some comments from me on where we've been, where we're at, and where you should expect us to go in the future as we look towards that. Now, I also want to let you know that in the room here today, we have less than 15 people, which meets our governor's mandate for mask wearing. We also have had everyone the COVID test today that all came back negative, so we're excited for that and able to stand here and present, which means that we'll be able to facilitate the meeting as usual with the right amount of people and interactions that an annual meeting requires. And our board chairman will take you through all that. So although these are tough times, we're still finding a way to do this in a way that's good for you and good for the business that we have to address. Now, and also a part of this journey is the Q&A at the end. And I'm really excited about this. When we added this part during the live meetings, I think it's important that your questions be able to be asked and straightforward answers. There's no room for anything short of that as we go forward. So it's important that you are able to ask those questions. So to the right of your screen, there's a box that will allow you to click on that and ask a question, enter your name, and also put in your question. Now, I also want to give you this fair warning up front. The questions we will answer must be broad in nature and cover the entire geography and the entire Landus. So specific questions, if you will type your name, we will make sure to get back to you specifically on your question if it isn't one that's broad enough for us to address in this setting in the limited time that we have. But we're all excited to have that opportunity with all of you. So with no further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our board chairman, Mr. Jim Carlson.
Thanks, Matt. On behalf of all Landus employees and the board of directors, welcome to the 5th annual meeting of Landus Cooperative. I'm Jim Carlson, chairman of the Landus board. We're glad you are able to join us on this virtual meeting. The annual meeting is designed to provide an update on our company, talk about the future, and visit with you, our farmer owners. I'll now ask Matt Showalter, secretary of the Landus board, is there a quorum present?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Matt. I call the 5th annual meeting of Landus Cooperative to order. A copy of the 4th annual meeting minutes were provided in your confirmation email when you registered for this virtual event. They are also posted on the Landus website at landuscooperative.com. Having heard or received no additions or corrections, they shall stand approved as received. I would now like to introduce the members of the Landus Cooperative Board of Directors. You have myself, Jim Carlson of Gowrie, as the chair. We have Nate Stewart of Cedar Falls, vice chair. Matt Showalter of Hampton, secretary treasurer. Ryan Brisley from Polk City. Ron Boos from Lake City. Gary Graber, Forest City. Craig Heineman from Ogden. Daniel Heller from Irwin. Tim Colder of Ackley. Jim Long of Maxwell. Dan Reynolds of Rockwell City. Sue Tronchetti of Peyton. And Bryce Capel, the associate board member. This group has really come together as a team this past year, and it's been an honor to work with them. I will now introduce the board director candidates for the open positions. They were chosen by the nominating committee. Running for director's position 1 is Dan Reynolds of Rockwell City. Dan currently holds the position and is running uncontested. Running for director's position 2 is Matt Chambers. Matt is from Audubon and is also running uncontested. Running for director's position 3 is Nate Stewart of Cedar Falls. Nate currently holds this position and runs uncontested. Running for director's position 4 are Bryce Capel of Maxwell, who currently serves as a Landus Associate Board Member, and Jeff Frank of Auburn. Landus General Counsel Steve Nilsson and our ballot tellers counted the ballots on Friday, December 11th. We will post the outcome of the Landus on the website, and I will also introduce them at this time. In the election for Board Director Position 1, Dan Reynolds has been elected to serve a 3-year term. In the election for Board Director Position 2, Matt Chambers has been elected to serve a 3-year term. In the election for Board Director Position 3, Nate Stewart has been elected to a 3-year term. And for Director's Position 4, Jeff Frank has been elected to serve a 3-year term. Congratulations to Dan, Matt, Nate, and Jeff. At this time, I would like to acknowledge 2 retiring board directors. Craig Heineman has farmed since 1976 and served on the Landus Cooperative Board via West Central since 1998. Craig, his son Brett, brother Paul, and nephews Andrew and Marcus manage a corn and soybean century farm northwest of Ogden. Craig is president of the Ogden Telephone Company and is a township clerk. He is a member of the Iowa Cattlemen's Association, Iowa Pork Producers, Iowa Corn and Soybean Associations. Craig is also a past president of the Central Iowa Farm Business Association, the Boone County ISU Extension Council, and his church congregation. Additionally, he has been a district commissioner for Boone County Soil and Water and a 4-H leader. Craig and his wife Martha are both ag business graduates of Iowa State University and have 2 children, Brett and Laura. Jim Long has been farming for more than 40 years in Polk, Jasper, and Story counties. He and his son manage a cow-calf and a feeder cattle operation and raise corn, soybeans, and alfalfa. In addition to serving on the Landus board since 2004, he serves as a township trustee. He is also active in his church, having previously served as a deacon. He attended Iowa State University, studying farm operations. Jim and his wife Paula have 2 sons, Nate and Ethan, and reside near Maxwell. Thanks to both Jim and Craig for their combined 38 years of service, humbly representing our farmers. Their leadership and experience will be greatly missed. Given the restrictions with COVID, we are not able to present Craig and Jim their service awards today. We will do that at an in-person board meeting in the future. We do have short videos featuring comments from Craig and Jim about their experience as a board member.
Hi, I'm Craig Heineman. My term on Landus board has expired and I'm going to retire. Well, I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most was just the learning process, that and meeting new people and becoming friends with them, employees, board members, people from co-ops around the country. It's been a very good experience, and I've enjoyed that a lot. I think Landus has a bright future. The farmers need help. I say they need the fertilizer. They need the expertise of the agronomist to learn how to apply things that produce better crops. They need the marketing from the marketing people. So there's lots of different things that will change in the future, and I think Landus will keep up. I'd like to thank my wife and family for putting up with me, especially when we come home in the middle of the night from a long meeting. I want to thank all the employees, a very good bunch of people that work hard to serve the members. And I also want to thank the members for putting their trust in me, for letting me be their representative on the board.
My name is Jim Long. I live at Maxwell, Iowa, and I'm retiring from the board of directors of Landus Co-op. And I became a director because I really believe in the co-op system. Well, one of my highlights was the new grain facility at Collins. Really the highlight was serving with good people on the board. I see the Landus Co-op finally living up to its potential. I've seen signs of that the last 6-9 months. I believe Landus will be an outstanding co-op. I believe it will grow. I believe farmers will grow. I don't think that's something that will stop. And I see change happening faster in the next 20 years than it did in the last 50. This year, I think. I just think that with Matt's leadership, I think this is going someplace. I think it'll be exciting to serve on the board. Acknowledged my wife for putting up with everything, and also my son, because he farms with me, and I'd leave him in the field to go to the board meetings, which at times perturbed him during harvest, but he lived through it, so did I.
Hello, I'm Mark Miner, Chief Financial Officer at Landus Cooperative. This meeting being virtual is a first for Landus. This whole year, in fact, has a lot of firsts for everyone. So with that spirit in mind, I want to start this financial report with some facts not in the audit report. I've been working in agriculture since 1976, the last 20 years as CFO. Since Matt Carstens has taken the helm at Landus, we have made a lot of changes. Not changes because we were told to by our bank group. Changes because the marketplace is telling us to. Changes we need to make to be your partner in the future. Landus has never been stronger than today. Total profit was $8.6 million. Last year was a negative $4 million. Matt has realigned the company to get decision-making out in the field where it belongs, with our customers. We have spent capital on agronomy equipment, updated our fleet of vehicles, added fixed asset improvements at Rake, Collins, and Early. Also, for the first time, we've paid patronage, $1.4 million, all in cash, distributed out last week. We are still passing through Section 199 money to the tune of $20 million to those growers who can use the tax deduction. In 2020, grain receipts were up 20%, fertilizer up 18%. Our Ralston soybean plant has crushed more soybeans than ever before at 23.1 million bushels. The slides coming up next will tell the financial detail of Landus, but it's important you know the story behind the numbers. Total sales at Landus were up $100 million at our August 31 fiscal year end. Total sales were just over $1.1 billion. Gross margins were up $7 million to $105 million. Total gross revenues were up a strong $16 million to $169 million. Operating expenses were held in check at only 2% rise at $160 million. Total profit was over $8.6 million to last year's negative 4.1. This was a huge turnaround. As I mentioned, sales were up $100 million to last year. The breakdown of these sales are $907 million in grain, $234 million in soy plus and soy chlor sales. Those are our branded dairy feed products. $145 million in agronomy sales, and $71 million from the feed division. Total gross revenues exceeded the last 2 years. In addition to the margins we just discussed, grain storage and services increased last year by $9 million. Agronomy services increased $1 million to $20.8 million. Total revenues were $169 million. Expenses were $160 million in total for Landus. These we break down by payroll, fixed, and variable expenses. Payroll was $57 million. Fixed ended up at $37 million. And total variable expenses came in at $66 million. A few slides on volumes. Landus Grain Division sold a record 180.7 million bushels. This was made up of 126.1 million bushels of corn and 54.6 million bushels of soybeans. Fertilizer tons were over 275,000 tons and is made up of dry, liquid, anhydrous, and lime tonnage. Dry fertilizer was up to last year at 137,000 tons. Last year was 112,000 tons. Liquid came in at 54,000 tons. Anhydrous was 45,881 tons. And finally, lime tonnage was 38,664 tons applied. The Landus processing plant in Ralston, Iowa continues to process more soybeans than we ever thought possible. Our hats off to that team that continues to become more and more efficient. At fiscal year end, they processed over 23 million bushels of soybeans through the plant in Ralston. Feed tonnage increased higher through our mills. We moved 409,000 tons of feed through our mills in Earlham, Halber, Dedham, Jefferson, and through our feed partners membership at Larrabee. Landus has one of the strongest balance sheets around. This page is the assets, or the value of what Landus owns. Total current assets, which is primarily inventory and receivables, was $234.7 million. Total plant, property, and equipment was $177.6 million after depreciation. Total combined, all assets at Landus are $456 million. Consolidated on the balance sheet side, or on the liability and equity section, this shows you who owns the assets we just talked about. Common creditors at the top, bank debt in the middle, and farmer owners at the bottom. Total current liabilities or common creditors on August 31 was $98.4 million. Total bank debt is $68 million. Members' equity came in at $264 million. Of this $264 million, $193.3 million is tax-paid retained savings. The balance of that number has a farmer name on the equity. Working capital is a measure of financial health of your company. It is current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets are anything you can sell within a year. Current liabilities are anything you owe within a year. Working capital Landus ended up at $136.3 million, down slightly to last year as we funded a lot of our capital projects out of working capital. The minimum amount we have to maintain is set by our board and our bank group, and is $100 million. So you can see we're well above that number. Long-term debt dropped $14 million to $68 million. This gives us a local leverage ratio of 43%. The limit on local leverage is set at 100%. So as you can see, we're being very efficient with our funds. The difference in these two amounts is what we call net debt. Or if you take all your working capital and pay off all of your debt, we still have about $70 million left. This puts Landus in an extremely good financial position for today and the future ahead. As I mentioned at the beginning, Landus has paid patronage this year, over $1.4 million in cash, plus 14.6 cents a bushel, or $20 million in Section 199 tax deductions. This shows that Landus has turned a corner. $8.6 million total income this year, and higher numbers are forecasted for next year. We will continue to spend capital on assets that will serve our future growth. We will continue to pay patronage as earnings dictate. Our working capital is high and our leverage is low. We have access to over $400 million of seasonal funding if needed. Your cooperative has an extremely strong balance sheet. The changes we have made in 9 months is driving our income statement up. You should be proud of the progress we have made in such a short time. This company is doing things a cooperative of the future needs to do to help you be successful on your farm. We know you can do business anywhere, so we really appreciate your business and loyalty to Landus. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And I also want to thank Jim for his leadership as board chair. But I also want to take a minute and thank our employees. When I joined Landus in March of 2020, we had a long road ahead of us. The financials were still in a tough spot, and it was the employees, from Mark and the rest of the leadership team all the way through, that reached deep and said, we can do this. We can accept the change we must take to turn the fortunes in our finances around. And Mark did a great job of laying out those changes and what they mean to you, and that we are absolutely in a healthy spot. And for that, I thank each and every one of our employees for that. Now, as we turn to a little bit of our past, wrapping up the 2020 fiscal year that ended in August, it's important to note some of the changes that occurred, some of the challenges that really set forth. It started with a drought that you see on this slide that reached well across our marketing area and created not only obstacles for all of you as our farmer owners, but for us as a company, taking in less grain receipts, making some of the challenges coming into this fall season for agronomy and even our feed business more challenging yet. But although drought is a part of what could happen in any year, there was no excuses. The team continued to move forward to end part of the journey this summer into the derecho that I know had an impact on every one of you that were in the line of that storm, from not just the crops, but some of your properties. And it also affected a little bit of our properties as well here at Landus. But as you see in the lower right-hand picture, our employees rose to that challenge. Every one of them in those affected areas reached out to farmers, as you see in this picture, cleaning up property, or in some of the rural communities that we operate in, helping those communities get back on their feet. And although it was a horrible experience, for me, getting to watch our employees jump into action, no direction, no cause for anything other than helping our farmer owners and our rural communities. That's the Landus way. That's what Landus is about. And I'm proud, once again, of our employees for their work on that. And throughout this whole time that I've been here at Landus, starting in March of 2020, we got the opportunity, as all of us, to deal with the coronavirus or COVID-19. And all this has created its own set of challenges, well beyond just social distancing and our ways of interacting. It's affected the business, from livestock to things like ethanol, where this summer ethanol production was curtailed or even in some cases halted in your markets, creating a new need to find home for your grain, to get it off of the farm, out into the marketplace so you could begin your harvest. Mind you, beginning harvest in those drought areas and derecho hit areas sooner than you thought. But that's the power of Landus. That's the power of the infrastructure and why you put this company together. Although we're making changes every day and making sure that we're here, not just for the needs of today, but tomorrow, this coronavirus and the effects that it had on the business, particularly grain, showed the value of our employees, of the assets, of our rail infrastructure, being able to get this grain off your farm, out of the marketing area where ethanols or other consumptions could not take place. That's Landus. That's the Landus way. And we must continue to leverage the power of our system, from employees to facilities to all of you, our farmer owners, no matter what the challenge brings. We also, you may have forgotten, we're dealing with a little bit of a trade issue going into this year. And that created obstacles as we dealt with countries like China and other markets where our grain infrastructure, able to export out, was a little bit hamstrung. And that's okay. That's just one more of the challenges that we had to rise up and find solutions to. And the team did it. You believed in us and continued to help us find ways to make this happen. Drought, derecho, corona, it didn't matter, including trade. Now, one thing that we've really spent a lot of time this year on is advocating for you, our farmer owners. And there was no better year to do that than this one that we're in. Think about all the money that our government at the federal and even at the state level has spent in moving forward the business of ag and other markets. We have absolutely spent countless hours on the phone, Skyping, talking with our senators at the federal level, some of the local folks, whether it's our Governor Kim Reynolds, or in this picture, as you see Secretary Nag and I on a Zoom call together talking about Pass the Pork, another initiative that was there to help our livestock industry, all of which are absolutely essential as we go forward. And I don't want you to ever misunderstand that the role of Landus absolutely has a place in advocating for you. This is not our grandparents' cooperative. I recognize the difference that advocation is today and what we're doing in this area than ever before. Although I'd love to sit and continue to talk about our commodities and our inputs businesses and all that, that is still a mainstay of Landus, but we must be looking at other areas that absolutely affect you and influence how you go to market. And you should expect your cooperative to do this every day to ensure that when the challenges that we've cited through 2020 fiscal has occurred, that we can fight through it, that we can have the support of those federal, state, and even other organizations like you see on this slide where we're talking to consumers or industry personnel in food, energy, and across the supply chain that Landus provides. We must be having those discussions, as painful or as glorious as they may be. That's a part of what you should expect from your Landus. Another piece that's sometimes overlooked by us like advocation is our rural communities. This is where all of us come to intersect. You come in to do business with us into these communities. We come out of these communities to do business with you on your farm. But these communities are essential. And we must make sure that they are able to thrive no matter what the economy looks like. So one thing that we did this year in collaboration with Land O'Lakes and Microsoft is working on free public Wi-Fi in our properties, and these 10 or 12 locations offered that. So a family or an individual could pull up to a designated spot, have access to high-speed internet to ensure that their schooling, as virtual as it was, can continue, healthcare, purchases, whatever the case may be, anyone in those communities had access to that high-speed internet. And for those of you that live in those communities, we take that responsibility serious. Although it's, again, not something you expect from the local cooperative, we understand the importance of that. And we'll continue to stand up and advocate for not only our farmer owners, but the communities that serve all of us as well. So where are we at today as Landus? What does that journey really look like? So some of the numbers to start with. First off, we have 7,000 farmer owners across our geography that we represent. We have over 600 employees, and we operate in 60 communities, mostly based here in Iowa. We also represent 11% of the corn that's exported out of our state and 16% of the soybeans. All of these are important reasons why we came together as Landus and why this journey is far from over, that we've really just begun, making sure we take responsibility for these numbers and continue to grow them in a way that's good for you and your farming operations. Part of that, of where we're at today, is the leadership team. Now, I know as farmers, you can have mixed emotions on leadership, and I get that. And I actually get that particularly from maybe what's been demonstrated over years gone by cooperatives as a whole. But this team is different because first, they put you in the center of every decision. Both Jim and Mark mentioned the decision-making is moved to you out in the field, not at some central location in a major town, but that decision-making is by people on this slide that have been near a farmer, talking to you, our farmer owners, every day. Whether it's on a phone, a Skype, or in person, it doesn't matter. And what I'm also proud, number two of this team, is the backgrounds they bring. And it's different. Take, for instance, people like Carrie Kerr-Inscat, who came to us from John Deere, prior positions with Corteva, and also Diamond Chrysler. Or somebody like Amanda DeYoung, who just joined us from her post at leading all of the FSA offices here in Iowa, one of the bigger jobs within the USDA. She now is on your team, helping make sure the decisions we make and the employees have the resources of a talent that's well beyond just buying and selling, but leaning into the future and the challenges that exist. We must have that every day. And this team represents that. And I can't wait to be able to get these folks into your places of business in person, showcasing what they can do and how they think different to meet the expectations that you should have of us, not just today, but well into the future. So now where are we going? It's a fair question. And I know there's a lot of questions around the change, right? Everyone knew on this virtual annual meeting that we needed to make changes at Landus. The P&Ls dictated that. You all, as our farmer owners, were very clear about that, and our employees. But sometimes when you're amidst a change, it becomes hard. It becomes something where you say, I want that change for them. I don't want to have to change. But that's not how it works. We all have to pull together in a way that's harmonious to the end goal that we're all striving for, which is taking Landus farmer owners and Iowa agriculture to a level that meets and exceeds consumers' expectations of the future. The industries that we serve as ag, like food, energy, even fiber, data, technology, we become an essential part of many other industries. So how do we plan to do that? I know this is a busy slide and I won't dwell on this because what you really see in front of you is a new approach that's Landus GPS, or Landus Growth and Performance Strategy. And in that talks about the way our purpose, our ambition, our priorities, which I'll talk a little about, the Landus Way, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then the arrival signs, all of which you should know and be a part of. Well, what I highlight from this are two pieces. First, the priorities. What are the priorities that we see for Landus moving forward? First is to cultivate that relationship with you, the owners of this company. And we're not bashful about that at all. It's an important part of the priorities that we must move forward with. Second is to protect. Protect those core businesses that make us up, like grain, agronomy, animal nutrition, and feed. All of those are why we're here today. And we must protect those to ensure that we're earning your business every single day. Third is that we apply a sales growth mindset. We must grow. And although I'm really pleased that Mark was able to report an over $100 million increase in our sales, at the end, we need more. We're going to earn more of your business with that growth mindset in all aspects of our businesses that we're in that core that we need to protect. And last is growing through innovation, intelligence, looking to the future, looking around the corner with this leadership team that I talked about and all of our employees, and coming to you with different ways to think. We have a new administration in the White House that's been very clear about their thoughts in ag and where carbon could be a new revenue source. We must lean into that. We must grow and bring that back. In addition to data, all the artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, all the pieces that today may seem a ways out there, but next thing you know, we have something like Corona that's upon us, and we need these technologies. We need to look at data in a whole new way. We need to have contactless delivery and customer portals and apps, things that we were able to absolutely jump on immediately to keep you and our employees safe. Those are the priorities you can count on. Now, the other piece that I think is a little easier and more simplified or streamlined for all of us is the Landus Way. You've heard me mention this a couple times. There's 4 things that also make up the Landus way. First, agility, courage, teamwork, and speed. On agility, I've already mentioned that ag is a part of many different industries. At the end, the consumer has the ultimate voice. They're the ones buying our products, the end products. Over 3,000 products on a grocery store shelf has corn involved in some part of that journey. We must be agile to meet the changes of any marketplace based on consumers or just what we talked about in the beginning of a drought, derecho, trade wars, COVID, all in 1 year. Technically, all that happened in less than a year, some in months of the same. That's the agility you demand, and rightfully so. Second is courage. We got to have courage to own it. Courage that every employee can have an interaction with you in any way, shape, or form and solve that problem. Give the advice they need, not have to call 3 or 4 different people, but have the courage to solve it for you. And although it will never make every decision perfect or right, they have the courage that we know we can learn and grow from those that we need to tweak of those decisions and continue to move the business forward with you in harmony. Third, teamwork. Now, teamwork absolutely must exist within the walls of Landus with all of our employees. But remember, you're a part of this team as well. You're owners of this company. So we take teamwork to mean all of us together, working harmonious in the company that you own. Because I assure you, all of those 600 or more employees every day wake up to serve you, and they're proud of it. And I want that to continue. But we must bring you into the teamwork that we're all working together as the Landus way. And last is speed. I've already mentioned the other industries that ag serves, and it's important that we continue to have the speed of those other industries. Ag historically has been somewhat of a slower, more steady-paced industry, although it clearly has its peaks and valleys, no doubt. But other industries like food and fuel, particularly, move at a little quicker pace. We at Landus intend to meet and exceed that pace as well, because that's what we're here to serve, for you and with you. And if we don't demonstrate that speed or the agility, courage, and teamwork, it'll pass us by. And that's not an option. Not because of your ownership, not because of these employees that wake up every day thinking about you and the journey that we're all on. So I'd like to end by once again thanking all of you for all that you do and the opportunity you give us to earn your business. And we don't take that lightly. Our board continues to impress upon us that need, and we will rise to that challenge. But as we look to the future, we must find ways to advance the future of agriculture. Because not only is this not our grandparents' cooperative, it'll look different in another 10 to 15 years, 20, 30, and it may even be 5. So how do we change this as we go forward? So we've assembled this video. I hope you enjoy it, looking a little bit into our past, but using that as a springboard to our future to advance the future of agriculture.
The spirit of human progress has always been born of bold, pioneering thinking.
We shall send to the moon a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall to an unknown celestial body and then return it safely to Earth. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people.
But what does it mean to provide healthy, sustainable food to a global population that will approach 9 billion people by 2050? And how do we do that while stewarding the very farmers who grow our own food? The answer? Big data, artificial intelligence, automation, precision. At Landus, we ensure these technologies are harnessed and integrated to create a new frontier of farming. That's our focus, and we recognize that. Like any audacious mission, it cannot be done alone. We are assembling the greatest technological minds and leaders across society's most valuable verticals to help us reframe that same question JFK posed over 50 years ago.
But why, some say, the moon?
But why, some say? Because it matters more than ever to look after our growing planet, responsibly and sustainably. Will you join us?
Wow, what a powerful video. The future of agriculture is definitely changing. This is not your grandfather's co-op anymore. Before we close the business portion of the meeting and move into the question and answer session, I'd like to thank all the empowered Landus employees for their hard work and dedication. They are putting their customers at the center of everything they do. Thanks also to our customers. Landus is focused on earning your business every day by providing the services and programs that will responsibly benefit your operation. I'm excited for the future of your cooperative. Since there is no further official business to be brought before the membership, I would accept a motion from the floor to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the 5th annual meeting of Landus Cooperative. Thank you for your participation. We will now move into the question and answer session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is something I think a little different than hasn't been done before at Landus, and I'm excited to do this because I do believe interaction with all of you is important. I do want to remind you the questions that we'll answer are the ones that are broad in nature and affect more of our population of farmer owners or business than just a finite area or a specific detailed question. But if you'd like a very detailed question answered, please make sure you put your name in there and we'll get that follow-up to you right away. So let's start. I've got a couple questions that came in from some of our farmer owners through our locations. And I wanted to start. This first one, Mark, is I'm going to give you. I've heard this as well, and I know you have as well, Mark. So I thought it was a fair question to address. The question came in that says, I've heard a lot of rumblings and rumors that Landus is having financial trouble or merging or needs to merge. Is this true? So obviously, Mark, you know, you've went through all this and given some really clear answers about our financial health, but I can understand why some of our farmers or other folks would have that question. So why don't you just kind of hit that one right on again?
Sure, yeah. So the question is financial and merger. The answers, we are very strong financially, $8.6 million, I mentioned, more working capital than debt, very strong balance sheet, one of the strongest in the Midwest. There is just no truth to that at all. Very strong, getting better. Anytime you make a lot of changes, people always seem to fear the worst. We made a lot of changes in 9 months, changes that were needed, changes the market told us to do, changes that the farmer wanted done. We're doing everything to make it stronger and stronger. Absolutely no truth to that. And the merger, nothing there either. So no, we're very strong cooperative. One of the strongest balance sheets in the Midwest. So.
Yeah, and I think you demonstrated that in kind of the turnaround financially. And I don't know if you want to give a sneak peek, but we're more than a quarter now into the new fiscal, and I'd say our farmer owners are going to be pleased at the current rate we're performing.
Like I said earlier, we're going to be higher next year profit than this year. Everything's clicking along as we planned. The derecho threw us a bit of a loop in the drought, but the changes we've made will more than offset that. So good year planned. Good year.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for the answer. Another question that came in, and then we'll get to some of these on the screen, but Steve Nielsen, I'm going to turn this one to you. Sounds like there have been a lot of changes this past fiscal year, particularly, I'm guessing, the last half of that fiscal year, as Mark alluded to in some of his comments. What kind of things should we expect to see in 2021? You know, I mean, there's a lot that's surfacing here. And as I mentioned in my comments, change is hard, right? Everyone knew we had to make changes. There's no doubt about it. But when it's in the midst of that, you get the common, the thought of, well, let that be them. I don't need or don't want change, right? And that's just not how it works on a broad scale. So talk a little bit about that from your seat and maybe introduce yourself a little bit as a new face to our audience as well.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. And thanks for the question. I'm Steve Nielsen. I'm general counsel here at Landus Cooperative. Started a month after Matt, and we have had a lot of changes, and change is hard. A lot of people don't like change, but we were in a position where we really needed to make some substantial changes in how this business was run. And it needed to be run more like a business, which means putting the power back out in the countryside. So the business unit leadership changes you've seen does exactly that. And so why do we do that? We did that so that you have one point of contact now, your account manager. It's very efficient. We need to be more efficient. We need to work smarter and harder. Those two are not mutually exclusive, by the way. So what changes should we see in 2021? You're going to see more of the same. You're going to see us continue to advocate for you as our farmer owners. You're going to see us continue to find new revenue streams for you. That's our job. We're here to serve you. So I would say fasten your seatbelt. It's only going to get better with time.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I had a farmer today I was visiting with that said their former grain merchandiser that now is an account manager for us reached out via text, I think it was, and said, hey, would you be interested in talking about agronomy? Although, that was odd for the farmer, right? The grain person talking agronomy. He said it was the first time in years someone has reached out and asked for their agronomy business. So I give that account manager all the credit, although not the expert in agronomy, there lives to be experts that they can bring in now and have that discussion with the farmer. And that's the power of the system you're talking about with the account management system.
You bet.
Well said. Thank you, Steve. All right, let's go to one of the questions that you all have submitted. A lot's coming in, but I want to talk about the first one that's on the screen, the Yale feed mill or feed in general. So, Don, I'm going to ask you to come up, Don King, and introduce yourself. But this has been a popular question, and there's a lot of work that Don is going through with that feed team right now and answering some of the long-term questions of how do we best serve our livestock farmers and what can we do to help continue to upgrade grain and bring that forward. So, Don, I know you've spent a ton of time on this, but maybe first introduce yourself,
Sure.
Address Yale,
Okay.
and then the bigger picture on feed and some of the goals there.
So my name's Don King, and I've been here since the 1st of June. And I've been working in all the different types of businesses that Landus does. So we'll talk about feed now. The Yale feed mill really come down to a hard question, but something that we really had to look deep into. We had 2 feed mills being built, state-of-the-art feed mills in an 8-mile radius. And we will look at today's owners, co-op owners, people that do business with Landus. We had to look what was the best decision for Landus. And with that, we kind of took a step that we were going to maybe take a step back, kind of review where we're at in the feed business the next 12 months, look to the future. I think, Matt, you would definitely agree we're committed to that future.
For sure.
But the right time, right place just didn't happen right then.
Yeah, and I think you said it well, Don. At the end of the day, we take our farmers' money serious. Yes. And putting 2 feed mills, both in cooperatives, on the farmer's money makes no sense.
It does not.
That's a bad business investment. And as I like to say, there eventually has to be an adult in the room, right? And we need to make these tough decisions that uses our farmers' money correctly. And that's what our farmers should be able to expect every day from Landus and the decisions that we make. And I'm proud of what you and your team are doing. I look forward to hearing some of the additional results of how we're going to be more beneficial to our farmer owners in the future in feed, because it's a key part of what we do, and we're going to be in it.
Very much so.
Appreciate it, Don. Thanks. Okay, next question, one that was submitted. I want to make sure we get to it. Carrie, I'm going to give this to you and talk a little bit about. I talked about you briefly already in some of my comments, so you won't be a complete stranger to the audience. But the question was, what is Landus' growth strategy for the future? What sets us apart from other cooperatives? So I think, Carrie, we talked a little bit about Landus GPS, the priorities within that, the Landus way, and starting to set an expectation that our farmers can expect in any interaction with us, that they know the employees are talking about those things, and that's what they're upheld to, and that what our farmer owners should uphold us to. So you were a key part of forming Landus GPS. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing, but you can also introduce yourself better than I probably did as well.
No, you did a great job. Thanks. Carrie Kerenskat, so I'm leading communications and marketing at Landus. I joined in August from John Deere. I'm thrilled to be here and really was happy to first start out with really articulating our strategy. I mean, we had there was a lot of good raw material to work with, so I certainly didn't develop it on my own, but really bringing it down to that GPS, which I do believe is our differentiator. I don't think any other cooperative out there can lay claim to a really well-articulated strategy like the one that we have. And it really does come down to those priorities that Matt was talking about. Putting our farmer owners at the center of all we do, really cultivating those relationships, protecting the core, and that is our main products and services, but it's also how we deliver those safely with the highest quality. So that can never go away. But how do we grow? How do we make sure that every one of us, not just those that are customer facing, but every one of us are thinking about how can we be selling? How can we be growing? That's huge. And then ultimately, what is that future? We are advancing the future of agriculture. That is what we're about. And the big part of that is innovation, technology, and data. So that's what I think is what makes us special.
That's really well said, right? And it's about the future. The simple blocking and tackling of the core must be there. But if we're not leaning around that corner and looking into that and bringing that back for our farmer owners, I think it's just a longer, tougher road for all of us. And I think our cooperative system as a whole, not just Landus, has fallen into that trap a little bit. And like advocating, data you mentioned, all the things that maybe aren't the most exciting things to talk about, but are the future because of consumers and that whole supply chain that exists. So well done. Thanks for answering that. Appreciate it, Carrie. Okay, there's some that you all have submitted. Mark, I'm going to send both of these to you. There's two that kind of fall into one. One is around what is working capital, or can you explain that, which is a good financial question, actually. And the second is, why do these checks have to be mailed? And I know we've been passionate about that a little bit and made some great steps in some of the things that you can talk about there relative to prepaying that. So, Mark, the floor is yours.
Working capital is current assets or anything you can convert to cash in a year minus current liabilities, anything that you owe in a year. That difference is working capital. And it's one of the main measurements that the cooperative system uses for your financial health of your company. So, like I said, we have a $100 million floor. We're at $136 million. So we are very strong that way. It's also one of the collateral the banks use to borrow money for seasonal needs. So it's important that the cooperative system keeps high working capital. The other checks, I think they're talking about deferred checks coming out in January. We really want you to ACH those if you can. And our ACH system is when we go to cut a check, we have the option to mail it or ACH it. You'll get your funds faster. It's a little easier for us to process, even though the funds come out of our bank sooner than normal. We cannot pull anything out of your account. It's just when we go to cut a check, we can ACH it. So there's been some worries that we can pull money out of your account for an agronomy bill or something. We can't do that. We're not 100% sure if we're going to mail the balance. But if you're worried about your check being there on time, ACH is the way to go. We plan on mailing them early, so some people should get them. A few people may get them the next day, which would be a Saturday. Most should get them Monday.
So to be fair to say, Mark, I mean, ACH is kind of somewhat been around for a while.
Been around a long time.
No excuses. We're just entering into that, and we're here now.
Yeah.
So if they want to speed that along, and sure, go into your local location or call in, I guess now.
Or you can go on the portal and enter your
portal, right?
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
It's COVID driven. We're trying to keep as much traffic out of the office as we can. That's the reason we started that. So I would highly recommend ACH if you want to get it sooner.
And I think it's safe to say we want that. So what the question is around, we're supportive of that. Work with your respective account manager or give any of us a call. We'll find a way to get that done if that's fair. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, the next one we'll talk about is around the actual geographies and who covers what of the business units and that. So, Don, I'm going to have you come up and talk about this a little bit. I know you don't eat, sleep, and breathe this as much as Randy Main, Amanda DeYoung, and Matt Hackford, but I know you've got some good knowledge. You were instrumental in how we kind of divided those up. So talk about the 3 business units, the 12 areas. That decision-making now is all done with people based in the field. So I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from our farm owners about the Ames office or even Ralston and Farnhamville. And I guess I'm happy to report for you that you can talk about problem solved. So the floor is yours.
So when we got here and through Matt's leadership, we looked at what can we do to get a growth culture going at Landus, which we believe is the main thing that we want to get to and where all business should do. So we looked at how can we get our management team, our decision-making team out in the country directly next to our consumer or our customer. And with that, we put together, before we had 4 different geography regions. We've reduced that down to 3. We have the northwest, the southeast, and the southwest and the eastern direction. We have 3 business leaders in those, and each business unit has 4 different area managers that work in that. So we're bringing those people out to hear your concerns, to look at what we need to do in the market quickly, and quickly is the reason, and what we can do to be a better partner on your farm, in your operation, whether it's feed, agronomy, grain. We want to be part of what the decision-making process is in your area. So with that, we have all empowered employees working for us. We do have a growth culture going on that Carrie mentioned. We have location managers, we have area managers, we have account managers, we have the regional or the business unit managers all working together for one reason: grow Landus's business and be a better business partner with you, our owner.
Yeah, well said. I think that's exactly right. And we heard you. And Don, you mentioned it. Our farmers have been very loud and clear. And I can't fathom an environment where somebody choosing to purchase something or sell something, making those decisions, haven't seen a farmer or talked to a farmer in 24 hours or less.
Yes.
And that's why moving it out of an office in a major city right next to you all with the 3 BU leaders and then the 12 area leads,
Yes.
we've got all that decision making right there. And let me remind you, the courage that all of our employees have. When you go to any of our employees, they have the courage and ability to answer or go find it quickly and come back. We trust their decision making, and that's probably the biggest turn and why I believe our financials showed that immediate turn the last half of our fiscal year. So thanks for sharing that, Don. Well done. Okay, I also have a question that came in. Steve, I'm going to use you a little bit in this. I'm going to take a majority of it because it's a tough one. But I also want to make sure, as somebody that was a part of these cuts and reduction in force that we made. So I think of 3 things when we talk about this question that was, can you discuss the results or recent cuts in the staff and what was behind them? So I said it already. You all know we needed to make some changes. And although everybody talks about the desire for change, a lot of times that change is painful. And upon my appointment by the board of directors, it was very obvious to me in sitting down with the current leadership team that was there at the time that our expenses were out of line. We had put 2 good-sized companies together and quite candidly, probably not cut deep enough. And I get that, right? When we put that together, we were a $1.4 billion company planning to go to 1.7. And unfortunately, due to many reasons, we went to 1 billion, not 1.7. Clearly, we were overstaffed. Part of the change that we must make is that we've got the right people, the right skill sets, and the right number of them. And we can't staff for the rainy day or that peak in the season, so to speak, opposite of the rainy day, I guess you'd say. So that was what was behind first wave of that, which was the reduction in force to get the right people in the right seats and the right number. And although nobody enjoys that, and I don't either, and I thank those employees that were a part of the journey and that have parted ways. But we must make sure that this company is able to sustain its business long term, and that's getting the right people, right seats, and the right number. But the other side of that is other expenses. So we are now in the process of cutting expenses that are just out in the lot. One that I can share with you that's really easy to probably see is the number of pickups. We have way too many pickups. The cost to maintain those, the cost if they're on a lease, all those things. And that's just a small example. So it's millions of dollars that we will continue to refine and right-size the business for us to be successful going forward. So Steve, you were a part of the journey in helping analyze all this and bring it forward. Anything you want to add to the journey and the folks you had to look in the eye with and have those tough discussions and talk a little bit about from your seat as somebody that came in and what you saw and what we're doing now to get those right-sized for the business today and where we're going in the future?
Thanks, Matt. So I agree. You know, we had too many employees. You hear it out in the countryside, and just so you as our farmer owner understand, the most cuts that we made were right here in Ames because we heard you, and that needed to happen. So that's what we did. The other part of it that really came into play for me was post-harvest with a derecho and a drought, we're taking in less grain than what we had planned on. And any business where your receipts are down a little bit, you got to look at cutting head count, and that's what we did. Probably the single most difficult week of my 30-year legal career as I went around this great state of Iowa and let a bunch of people know, I'm sorry to have to tell you, you don't have a job. And looking those folks in the eye, it was a really tough week. But did it need to be done for your benefit, for your company? Absolutely, it needed to be done. We will continue to analyze personnel. Single largest cost of any business, I don't care what widget you make, is labor. So we will continue to make sure the right people are in the right place so your company is run efficiently and effectively for your benefit. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, well said. And I just hope our farmer owners hear that although it's a part of any business, it is a painful part, and we don't take those decisions lightly, and we'll continue to make sure that we're putting your money and your cooperative in the best possible position to win. So I'm going to take one last question, and then we'll cut it off. And I think this one is pretty straightforward. But Don, if you've got any comments you want to add to this, feel free, as I know you've had some discussions on this very topic. So the question is, why does it take a week or more to get spraying done before planting, or even in fall when you're trying to get spreading done ahead of whatever tillage or fall work that needs to be done? And this has been something that's been clear since I came here, something that we must continue to evolve. And I know that Randy Main, Amanda DeYoung, and Matt Hackford and their area leads are spending a ton of time on this and really refining the process with new reports, new ways to analyze and move it forward. But Don, you've been a part of those discussions with them. Talk a little bit about your belief that it shouldn't take that. So let's get that right out there in the open, and what we're doing to solve that.
So my experience comes from that field. For 36 years, I owned and operated my own agri-till businesses. So when you talk about expectations from the customer, a week is way too long. So we're going to change our expectations. We're going to change our habits. We're going to drive people to give better customer service. And it's really not the employee's fault. It's culture, getting culture set and what an expectation is. So our expectation going further will be 36 to 48 hours. We want to fill your needs. We want to deliver those needs. We have good people that work for us. We got good equipment that we have. And I hear that loud and clear. That is not right. That's not what retail should be doing today. We are going to fix that. And would love to hear comments as we get in the spraying season, as we get to next fall. But our expectations as a company, we talked about our acts. Acts is speed. Speed is part of it. We're going to really work hard to get your expectations and meet those in the near future.
Yeah, well said. And I just want to reiterate that that's not acceptable. That's not the Landus way.
No.
And although there's a definite balance in personnel and equipment and that, we do believe we've got what we need to serve your needs. And our board stands willing and ready to continue to invest in the capital that all of you need. And Mark Miner highlighted that in some of the spin that we've had when he showed working capital and what that is. So great question. Appreciate it. And make sure you continue to let that voice be heard where things aren't meeting your expectations. That feedback is important to all of us, taking it through your location where they can fix it, or calling anyone that you'd like. We want to make sure that we're here for you. This is, again, your cooperative. So in closing, let me say thanks for a great annual meeting we've already concluded and a really good Q&A. I want to first say my appreciation and thanks to our board of directors for all they do. It's at times a thankless job, and they continue to instill the ways that I know all of you want and represent you. Second, I want to thank our employees. This is, at the end of the day, them that makes this happen. I may be the one today standing in front of the camera speaking with all of you, but it's all of our 600 or more employees that truly make this happen. And now they can work with you and answer your questions right there on the spot with you at the center of all they do. And last, I thank all of you, our farmer owners. I know this journey with Landus at times has been tough and bumpy and hilly, but I assure you, we've got the right Landus GPS, Landus way. We want to earn your business every day. And you can clearly see in the answers we've given to the Q&A and just the overall 1 or so hours we've been talking that this is the path we're on. And it's about you. It's about the future. So thank you for continuing to give us a chance to earn that business. On behalf of all the employees and board of directors, I wish all of you a happy holiday season, and thanks for all you do here at Landus.